Welcome to Black Men Speak. I'm your co-host, Jimmy Stewart.
And I'm your co-host, Tommy Duncan.
And today we're going to discuss our solution pillars. And like I said, in one of the previous shows, Tommy mentioned three things that he thought we should focus on: family, business, and education, specifically as it applies to our children. And so today we're going to start with that first pillar, and let's talk about a little bit about business.
Right. So I mean, that's the key thing. We've talked about this in terms of economically being disenfranchised in the United States. Really, the basis for the American economy is capitalism.
Yes.
And that starts with the business. And so, given that we have the lowest number of businesses per capita than any group in the country, I mean, we're like, okay, where are we going here? We can't be competitive if you're not competing.
Sure.
And at the end of the day, we've got to reinvest in our own financial infrastructure, because money drives politics, and then politics obviously drives the distribution of resources, access to capital, and everything else. So I mean, that's an extremely important topic.
Very much so. So let's start with some ways. For instance, we already know the condition of the black man in America. It is dismal. And black men are the primary group we need to focus on initially to elevate, to bring them up to par with where the black women.
And the question would be, you mentioned working with the black man first. Why the black man in Europe?
Because he's so far behind. Because when you look at the overall landscape, excuse me, you look and see where our black women are. Graduating high school, going to college, coming out of college, being less threatening to corporate America, so they're able to work their way into corporate America, assimilate, and even rise to prominent positions in corporate America much easier than the black male.
And the other thing about it is, statistically speaking, Jimmy, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the black woman is the fastest growing segment of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, she's been the most successful group in America for the last 10 or 15 years. So black women are doing a phenomenal job with elevating themselves. And just think about it, Tom, if we didn't have the success of the black woman, that, what do you say, 39,000?
39,000.
That number would probably be down to 20. Yeah, it would be so far down in the gutter that it would almost qualify as a national emergency for as a governmental response. So yeah, the black woman's been doing a phenomenal job. Now we need to work on the black man to get him into the race. He's not at the starting line right now.
Oh, no, I would agree with you on that one. And traditionally speaking, folks within our community typically have steered towards, I mean, when my father was, he would always tell me that when he was growing up and he got out of high school and trying to figure out what he was going to do in life, because of segregation, they only had access to doing a few things. He said either I can be a preacher or a teacher. And then there were a couple, there was the insurance man, but you know, generally speaking, when our fathers, grandfathers, you know, during that period of time, probably after World War II, they had access to very few opportunities professionally. And so when you could get an education, typically at historically black colleges, because they weren't letting my father, or with a few exceptions, into white colleges, you only had access to a few options. Well, obviously that's changed dramatically, but the reality of it is, when we look at the state of education, at this point in time, and when you look at the advancement of technology, new economies, etc., then you know we've got to figure out the right path and the right trajectory in order to rebuild our financial foundation.
Sure. So let's talk about this. If you are a person who feel like you've been left out of the equation, that you're not part of the calculus of the success of America, and you want to do something about that, what are some of the things that you can do? So one of the things you can do is look around the landscape and see what is needed. I think all too often, Tom, we go into the businesses that we like, things that we enjoy, and then we fall in love with that business. Other successful people go into business to build a business to do what? To sell it. And they generate their wealth from the sell of the business. They don't really care what the business is. If you look at you know, Elon Musk, I mean, he's been in the news here lately. I think he's losing his mind. Yeah. Personally,
when we say Elon Musk, we're talking about Tesla, right?
I think he's in a little trouble with the SEC for some of his tweets, but they say he works like 120 hours a week. He hasn't been resting, and some people are just concerned about his health. But he's been in several businesses. He's in SpaceX, he's in the Tesla, he was in the communication business before that with the internet satellite device. It was wireless though, but it worked though. I mean, I used to use it in my business for customers who couldn't, qualify to have, cable run to their place of business. We just drop one of those boxes in there and they have instant internet access. So they work great. But he's been in several businesses, and then once he makes them successful, he sells them. Mm-hmm. So we maybe need to take a page from that book and maybe look at businesses that we can start with the hope of either holding on to them and growing them, or maybe one day make them successful and sell them.
You bring up a very good point because, I guess within our community, there are so few stories of success. Well, that's not true. We've had several successful business people. I mean, whether we go back to Madam C.J. Walker, whether we talk about folks, like the Johnson Publishing Company. Mm-hmm. When we look at we look at the massive, large businesses, we probably are overlooking some of the smaller businesses, but we have a tendency to want to hold on to that, not trade up or trade out in order to expand into other businesses. Right. And so, I mean, that's one thing that I think you make up a very good point. We'll find one thing, we'll fall in love with it, and I think there's definitely space for that. But speaking of the big picture, we've got to be in the business of growing wealth, growing our economy, and the best way to do that is growing your business.
And make sure that the business you go into has a viable need. And one way you can do that is watch TV and see what's being advertised. Like, for example, I saw an interesting commercial for a company that will send you your air conditioner filter in the mail. Mm-hmm. And they keep track, they'll send the first one to you for free, they say. And so once they get you hooked, most people don't pay attention, they don't mark it on the calendar. They wait until they start sneezing, the air in their house gets contaminated or bad, and they say, oh, maybe I should go change that filter. Maybe I'm sneezing, my eyes are watering because the filter hasn't been changed in, a year and a half. You're supposed to change it every 3 to 6 months. But you know what? If you're looking for a business, that's been advertised, and someone has determined that there's a need out there, you can easily go door to door and ask people, do you want someone to take over that responsibility for you? I will come to your house, I'll take out your dirty, nasty filter, which no one wants to deal with. Those things are dirty and nasty. Bag it up and take it away off the premise. I'll put you in a new one, and then in 3 months or 6 months, when it's time to replace it, I'll be back. And I'll only charge you, $5, $10 plus the cost of the filter to do that. And you may say, well, $5 or $10 is not a whole lot of money, but how long does it take to replace one of those filters? A couple of minutes. And if you get several thousand subscribers, locally, I mean, it's one thing to get in the mail and have to do it yourself. It's a whole other thing when someone's coming to your house and doing it for you.
Yeah, I would agree. Now, Jamie, the one thing that most people are probably saying, especially if they don't have a family or a history of being an entrepreneur, the greatest issue, I think, for most people is one, fear and risk of losing everything. Again, most of us, if we came from a traditional household, mm-hmm. Our family told us, get a good education, get a good job, and make sure that you're comfortable.
That's the success, that's the path to the middle class.
And most people are afraid, of course, of taking that step because, of course, you could lose all of your money.
You could.
And, the reality of it is most successful
business capital is what it's all about, though.
Right. And most successful, really successful people have failed multiple times.
Yes.
Several times.
Walt Disney filed bankruptcy 7 times before he became a success. But failure is the path to success. Michael Jordan, I think someone sit there and did the stats on him, has missed more shots than 95% of the players who ever played in the NBA, not just in the NBA, who's ever played in the history of the NBA. But we don't consider Michael Jordan a failure.
Correct.
So you're going to have some failures along the way. The secret is to just keep going forward. But you bring up a good point, Tom, the family unit when it comes to elevating the black man. The black man's got to realize that you're not going to dig up and crawl out of this hole, the pit that we're in, by yourself. It just can't happen. Rarely it does happen, but for the most part it's not going to happen. Having a supportive family is going to be very important because when the chips are down, when things are not going well, you're going to need a support structure to encourage you to continue to move forward. That's your wife and that's your children who believe in you. As long as they see you trying and going out there every day trying to make it happen, they will continue to believe in you regardless how many times you fail and you come home and say, well, it didn't quite work out today. I only picked up 3 customers, no, I was trying to pick up 20. Well, you know what? Having some loving members that say, well, dad, husband or spouse, don't worry about it. You'll make it up tomorrow. We're behind you. We're with you. Those are things, that support system is what you need. You have to have it.
I would agree with you. I would agree with you. Now, one thing that I would want to add to this, and I know that a lot of brothers out there who may be listening are saying, you know, look, I have brilliant ideas, but it's the access to capital that holds us back. And you know, we've talked about this earlier today. You know, most of the traditional banking structures are not going to be extremely supportive of what it is you're trying to do. And so we need to talk about, okay, if the idea is not the problem, if the market is not the problem. I have a customer. I have an idea for a great product. I don't have access to capital. I went to to the traditional bank, the big banks. You know, I went to a credit union. I don't have access to capital.
Here's what you do have access to. You have access to a black woman. And I'm not saying maybe get involved with a black woman for resources. What I'm saying is that if you have a good black woman in your life and she works, there's a good chance she has a 401k. There's a good chance she has some money saved up. There's a good chance she has access to some capital.
Now, Jimmy, before you go too far, I know there's some sisters who are listening too, and they're probably saying, he must be out of his mind.
Ladies,
he's going to take my money.
Yeah, I understand.
I work too hard for my money.
I know, I understand, and it is risky all the way around. But the risk takers are the ones who have the greatest success. Mm-hmm. So, black woman, you may have to take a chance on a black man who's trying to elevate himself. Really. I mean, you say, well, I take chance. I take a chance on this guy and that guy. I'm not talking about the riffraff who talk a good game. I'm talking about the black man who is truly trying to turn his life around and do something, who wants you, who wants to have a family with you. That's the guy you take a chance with. That's not the guy you beat down and you just put him out there and say, well, hey, go find a job and then whatever you can contribute to the household is great. No, if that guy has aspirations to do something on his own, please, take a chance and invest in him.
The other thing that you have to consider as well is that, there is risk associated with anything new. And for those of you who have not read it, there's a great book, Jim, I don't know if you read it, called Blue Ocean Strategy.
No.
Because really the premise of the book is that, where the most opportunity is not getting into where the competition is, but actually creating new energies.
Correct.
I mean, new industries, creating completely, you may take a concept that is known and popular, but completely taking a new strategy, or whether it's a distribution strategy. For instance, we talk about Cirque du Soleil. That was one of the studies, or one of the use cases in this book, and they talked about how they completely recreated the whole entertainment industry. They took something that was known, which is the circus. Mm-hmm. Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus, and they took the entertainment industry and they created a completely different model for family entertainment.
Sure.
And so it doesn't have to be something, for instance, that's unknown, even though it's great. Because, before there was the iPod, there was nothing.
Sure.
You can take something that's completely unknown, or you can take a known concept and recreate the whole, a completely strategy behind it.
Yes.
But the other thing, in terms of risk, Jimmy, you don't want to give all your money away to someone who doesn't have a solid business plan. Number one, where's the business plan?
But see, that's what I'm talking about. That's how you gauge how serious a person is. If they're willing to take some classes, learn business, get a mentor, work on, and see, a lot of the black women, a lot of them have MBAs, they have bachelor's degrees in business administration. So they understand these things, or they work in industries where these things happen. So does he seek your counsel on developing a business plan? This is how you gauge how worthy he is and how serious that person is. Everyone can say, I want to go to the moon, I'm going to build a rocket, maybe I'm going to bring you back some moon rock. And then 6 months later, they're not in the garage building anything, sitting around talking. So you have to be able to discern the talkers from the doers. The doers will humble themselves, will go do what they have to do to make it happen. The talkers are just going to talk. So if you're not sure how to separate the two, and you need some advice, reach out to Tommy and I. Maybe we can give you some guidelines. Tell us about the guy you were with. Maybe we can have a conversation with him and help you out here. But
right.
yeah, in terms of don't just give your money away.
I would say if they don't have that, keep your money. But number one, they need to have a solid business plan. Number two, what kind of skin do they have in the game?
Sure.
If they're asking for 100% funding for their business, I would say run the other direction. And they have no skin in the game whatsoever. They need to have some skin in the game, otherwise their own money, their own capital.
They'll appreciate it more.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, it's just like having kids. You know, if they spend mom and daddy's money, they'll go out and buy everything under the sun. But when they have to spend their money, guess what? Their decision-making changes.
And Tom, it may mean, black man, that you start off doing something very meaningless.
On a smaller scale.
Maybe even if you're just picking up newspapers and cans and selling them for money, to raise money. Maybe you need a truck, maybe you need tools. But you're right, rather than go to your woman and say, I need X, Y, and Z, and expect her to just write you a check for it, maybe you do the things necessary for you to provide some of the funding, where you have some skin in the game. You'll feel better from going out and doing the dirtiest, most meaningless job out there and raising your own money and having a sense of accomplishment. You not only need to do it for your family, but do it for yourself. When you do this, you've proven to yourself that you can go do this.
And I think the key part that Jimmy is speaking of, and I think some brothers out there who are saying these dudes are crazy. It's not the most important thing, Jimmy, that I think that you said is it's not what you're doing, but it's understanding how to build a business from the ground up and then taking that model and building other businesses.
That's true.
Whether that's mowing the yard, throwing a paper, whether that's building some widget, whether it's whatever it is learning how to run a business from the bottom up and then building other businesses. Some people call it being a serial entrepreneur. Right. Those are the folks that you find who are the most successful.
Because Tom, I'm going to tell you, if you've never run a business before, like I said, your best bet would be this. You can reach out to Tom and I. There are other resources you can reach out to. But if you reach out to Tom and I, we can give you some practical things on how to get started. For instance, maybe you get a table at the swap meet, and you go out to Alibaba, you go out to some of these wholesale places on the internet, and you make you go to Alibaba and buy everything out there. I mean, shirts, shoes, electronics. If you have $1,000 in your pocket to invest, there are tons of stuff you go out there. And I don't have any skin in Alibaba. I'm just saying that's a place that when I was starting off and trying to generate revenue for the business I'm in now, I started off with Alibaba. I bought tablets, I bought electronics and things from them, cell phones from Alibaba. It took a couple of weeks for them to ship it here. Once I got it, I sold those things to generate money for the business I'm in now. So I'm just saying, I'm giving you things that I know will work for you, that you can get started with a small amount of money, but you do have to put the work in. It's not easy standing out there in the summertime at swap meets trying to sell stuff, but it is doable. And I'm saying that there's always a path if you seek it out. Don't just believe that there's no way for you to come up.
And brothers and sisters for that matter, I think ultimately the end game that we're talking about is that if we're going to compete in America, if we're going to close the economic and therefore the political gap, we've got to compete in the same arena that everybody else is. And ultimately, there are always going to be folks who are working in corporate America. But at the end of the day, the folks who really own the power and the clout are those folks who are running businesses. And it is our responsibility, it is our role ultimately to lead as men. And we've got to catch up to our sisters because they are now ahead of us, ultimately.
Way ahead, Tom. There's no way collectively as a group we're going to catch up to any other group. Hispanics, whites, and that's another thing. Let's stop setting a bar to catch up with white people. White people are not the income leaders in America anymore. Like I said, quietly and secretly, the Asian community has elevated themselves, propelled themselves to the top spot. We need to be trying to catch up with the Asians. That should be our goal. Not Hispanics, not white people, but the Asian community. So with that being said, as a group, we don't have any chance if the black man is lagging behind.
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, when we build a foundation, when we build that core, we are partnering, working with the sisters, and we become an economic nightmare to the rest of the community. But first, we've got to build the foundation.
You have to build the foundation. So if you're out there watching this video, man or woman, if you know someone who needs help, if you have someone in your life that needs help, and he's not sure what the next step is or where to turn, reach out to us. We'd be glad to correspond and try to help out, offer whatever advice we can. I would suggest that you find someone who's more successful than you in life and get them to be your mentor.
Absolutely.
Someone who's local that you can talk to. It's very important. It's not, oh, well, I don't even want to tell you what to do. Actually, you do. Everyone needs someone to advise them. That's why corporations have boards, and even the richest people in the world have mentors who help advise them and point them in the right direction. So we have to play the game the same way other people have played the game. Don't think that it's, you're littering yourself or it's beneath you or
Gotcha.
For you to involve someone else to help you and point you in the right direction.
And what I would submit is that if you don't have mentors in your life, you are actually slowing down or retarding
Yes.
the process of your own success, because nobody gets anything done by themselves.
That is true. And then the other thing is that business in America, for the most part, this country was founded on investment. I mean, the voyages here were investments to send ships out, find a land that has some wealth, rape, pillar, whatever you have to do, but get the wealth and bring it back. And we're gonna split it up once you bring it back.
And Jimmy, that actually did happen.
And it did happen.
At the end of the day, they were looking for new shipping routes, and obviously they were looking for new economies to exploit to rebuild Europe.
Correct.
And America got in the way, and there were some folks who inhabited, the American Indian inhabited America, and at the end of the day, they had the Europeans more military power.
But every business in America, for the most part, that's successful was built on investment at some point. Someone had to invest in that business.
And folks, another thing we'd like to add is that model has not changed. Every war that has ever been fought has been fought over access to resources.
And guess what? The next one's going to be fought over the same access. I mean, the Brits went to war with the Chinese because they wouldn't buy drugs from them. So trust me, eventually it's going to happen. So we have to make sure that we're part of the mechanics of that machinery, that wealth-building machinery. We can't be left out of the equation like we've been so far. So if the black man were to get involved, Tom, in a major way, could you imagine you take our spirit, our hunger, our need to sort of be best at what we do, and take that from the basketball court and the football field and apply it to business, just how much success and how much wealth we could generate using that same energy, taking there may only be one LeBron to play basketball. I guarantee you we can have thousands, tens of thousands of LeBrons in the business world.
Right.
With that kind of dynamic and that kind of drive to be the best at what they do.
You're right. I mean, at the end of the day, it seems like everyone understands our value more so than we do.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, if we really understood our value as much as other folks did, who actually leverage our value and create billions of dollars.
With that, Tom, because other people understand the dynamic of the black man and his spirit and his will for dominance, that's another reason to create this whole system to entrap him, to get him off the board. You'll never become the queen and the king of the chessboard when you're a pawn and we're setting traps for the pawn to trap them in prisons. If you made some mistakes in life, put it behind you. Start looking for ways to move forward. Do not simply fall back into the trap and go back to prison. Do not put your family through that. Do not put the loved ones through that. Don't put yourself through that. You need to care about yourself to motivate yourself to go do something better. And I'm telling you, better is out there. And if you're not sure where to turn to make your first step towards doing something better, reach out to us.
And with that said, I think that's the close of our show.
That's the close of our show?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, well, we want to thank you for listening. Please come back. Please subscribe. Hit the subscribe button right now. You get the little light that's showing you subscribe. And when new videos come out, you will get them. And our promise to our listening and watching, viewing audience and to black people is that we're going to do our absolute best to share with you things that we know to turn things around. We cannot, Tom, continue to be last in line in the country that we helped build. This is a national disgrace of what's happened to the black community. So we have to make some fundamental changes, people, to turn this around.
And we're the only ones who don't know it's a national disgrace.
Yes, isn't that amazing? How does that happen? Yeah.
We're going to talk about that on another show.
Okay.
All right, let's go ahead and recognize our sponsors and close everything.
I want to say thanks to MOTC Telecom, which in the future, there's going to be a future announcement from them on some business opportunities for black men, so stay in tune.
We'd like to thank Fitness 360 to been a long time. Thank you very much.
Yes, and to For Us Films, who does our editing and uploading, and also they're going to be looking to do some future projects also with short films and movies, so stay in tune for that.
And we want to thank our viewing audience. We thank you very much for supporting us. Please give us your comments. Please subscribe. Your comments are greatly needed, and will be contributing to the success of our program moving forward.
And we absolutely promise that for everyone who leaves a comment, we will respond. All right? Okay.
Well, thank you very much.